pressure of having to qualify, it falls on these guys' shoulders.
In recent years, the U.S. men's soccer program has been going through rough patch after rough patch. From top players returning from overseas, to failing to qualify to the 2017 Confederations Cup, failing to qualify to the 2018 World Cup, to now, failing to convince of any real progress of their gaming quality. This has allowed many questions to be asked regarding the structure of the program.
But at some point, the sport in the United States has to stop becoming an elite sport. It has to become a grassroots sport.
Quality of players,
the last two Olympics, the men were not
as
in
well
it.
as if the current talent is a good reflection of every resource available being used.
There is a big issue in this country when it comes to the relationship between the U.S. Soccer Federation and minority communities.
To answer all three questions, it could be better. The structure in place directly affects the quality of the talent pool due to the neglect of certain groups. Currently, the system in place is called pay to play, and while it may be good to generate money, it doesn't service the growth of players nor the game. Those who have the money and resources available to them have a higher chance of playing in better leagues because they cost more, while the less fortunate, typically minorities, are left playing in lower quality leagues or just simply playing at a local park with less possibilities of being identified by scouts. This creates a big problem that we see today but has existed for years: the neglect of minority communities from U.S. soccer, and specifically for this video, the Latino community. A quick glance of current and past players won't lead you to this conclusion, considering recent players like Paul Arriola, Christian Roldan, Omar Gonzalez, Alejandro Bedoya, or historic players like Claudio Reina, Marcelo Balboa, Carlos Bocanegra, or Tab Ramos. But this is the same thing as saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Historically, U.S. soccer has neglected the Latino community when it comes to recruiting, for both players and coaches. Scouts for U.S. soccer would typically look to elite clubs or colleges, and rarely, if ever, visit lower-income communities, where most of the minorities and loads of talents reside. And it's questionable if there is even any concern over the matter. ESPN reporter and former U.S. national team player Herculez Gomez says, "It is very difficult for young immigrant families to pay to play. Oftentimes, Latin American kids, not just Mexican American kids, get overlooked because they don't have the funds. It's very much a suburban sport." According to an article from The Nation that released in October 2019, only 7% of players in Major League Soccer during the 2018 season were U.S.-born Latino players, while 11% were U.S.-born African-American players. In the same article, it is further proven of the lack of action and interest from the Federation to reach the Latino community. Brad Rothenberg, son of former U.S. Soccer President Alan Rothenberg, co-founded Alianza de Fútbol, an organization made with the purpose of giving these underappreciated players a chance to show their skill and provide a spotlight for scouts to identify them. According to Rothenberg, there is little to no communication from U.S. soccer, and in fact, he himself would have to call them a couple of times a year simply to remind them that they are out there. While it was funded in 2004, 2018 was the first year that they sent anyone with an official capacity to make any decisions. A prime example of this neglect is the case of Jonathan Gonzalez, winner of Sueña Alianza, after he was seen playing in the Alianza de Fútbol tournament. He was then offered to play for Monterrey, Mexico, one of the biggest clubs in the country. He had played for various U.S. youth teams and even had said that his loyalty was for the U.S. national team, but unfortunately, he received very little interest from the Federation, while Mexico endlessly pursued him to switch sides. Gonzalez said, "When you have one side making you feel wanted, but the other side doesn't make you feel important, it makes you think." There wasn't that same communication, and it didn't feel like there was a real interest. U.S. soccer wasn't taking me seriously.
It's not easy knowing that I always saw myself playing in the U.S., but now that I'm in Mexico, I feel like I'm pretty much home.
These stories don't end there either. Hugo Perez, a former U.S. World Cup veteran and the former U14 and U15 coach who discovered Jonathan Gonzalez, was let go in 2014 by U.S. Soccer. At the time, the reasons for his release were unclear and was followed by no explanation. He was doing everything the Federation didn't want to be a part of. For one, Perez had his team play an attacking style of play, contrary to the defensive, counter-attacking soccer the national team historically has been accustomed to playing. He also wanted to recruit players from outside of the academy system and look at immigrant leagues. He would host free training centers and meet with players and coaches from unaffiliated leagues. Perez was glad to and had an advantage of scouting Hispanic players due to the fact that he is familiar with the culture. It helped ease concerns and persuaded the parents of the potential players. For the first time since his dismissal, Perez spoke of the topic. According to the former coach, he was told many times not to speak Spanish to his Latin players, and his continued use of his native language was a factor for why he was let go. Perez defends his actions by stating that he would speak Spanish when other coaches wouldn't understand him. He had an advantage considering the opponent's coach didn't know what instructions were given. Another reason for his use of Spanish during his tenure was for meaningful communication within his Hispanic players. There are words in my culture that can be lost in translation, Perez said. Buena and good job weigh differently, for example. They mean the same, but for a Hispanic player, buena means the world. Perez never made an official complaint because he didn't think they would change their mind. And once again, the most disappointing aspect of all this, Perez said, it made me feel unappreciated. At the moment, the best model that U.S. Soccer can follow are their own U20 team, who since 2011 was led by U.S. Hall of Famer Tab Ramos. Looking at the roster, you see that he has taken full advantage of the talent the country offers, bringing in players of different ethnicities and backgrounds, players that offer something different on the field, expressing their soccer culture. They have won the last 2 under-20 CONCACAF tournaments and have reached the quarterfinals in the last 3 consecutive under-20 World Cups under Tab Ramos. This proves that this works. Let's hope that U.S. Soccer changes, and everyone who deserves a chance gets that chance. And let's hope to see a national team that actually reflects what the country looks like.